Magandang araw! Sama-sama tayong matuto sa Teacher Sal Learning Resource Channel.
Revised K-12 Curriculum English 5 Quarter 1 Week 2. Our topic is all about sound devices and figures of speech. What's the sound? Different pictures of animals, humans, and machines that make sound will be flashed. Your task is to identify and give that specific sound. What's the sound? For the first picture. Second picture. Third picture. Fourth picture. Fifth picture. Sixth picture. Seventh picture. Eighth picture. Ninth picture. 10th picture. 11th picture. And the last picture. What would the world look or feel like if there are no sounds? Why do you think sounds are important? What other sounds coming from nature and machine do you know? For the lesson purpose, the sounds we hear from nature and man-made things can also be read in different pieces of literature. These are called onomatopoeia. There are creative ways in which authors of literature can appeal to the senses of its readers. Let's have an activity, twist your tongues. Different tongue twister scenes will be flashed on screen. You will take turns in reciting each tongue twister without committing mistakes. She sells seashells by the seashore. How can a clam cram in a clean cream can? Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't very fuzzy, was he? Betty Butter bought some butter, but she said this butter's bitter. If I put it in my butter, it will make my butter bitter. So she bought some better butter, better than the bitter butter, and it made her butter better. What did you notice about the tongue twister pieces? What similarities can you pinpoint as regards the vowel and consonant sounds in each tongue twister? Match the figures of speech in column A with their corresponding descriptions in column B. Write the capital letter of the correct answer in the blank provided. For column A, number 1, alliteration. 2, hyperbole. 3, simile. 4, personification. 5, metaphor. 6, assonance. 7, consonants. And 8, onomatopoeia. For column B, letter A, it compares two different things using the words like or as. For example, her smile was as bright as the sun. B. It is a figure of speech that directly refers to one thing by mentioning another, to suggest they are alike. For instance, time is a thief. C. It attributes human characteristics to non-human things or abstract concepts. For instance, the wind whispered through the trees. D. It involves extreme exaggeration for emphasis or effect. For example, I've told you 1,000,000 times. E. It is a figure of speech in which the sound of a word imitates its meaning. For instance, buzz or clang. F. It is the repetition of initial consonant sounds in neighboring words or syllables. For example, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. G. It is the repetition of vowel sounds in neighboring words or syllables. For example, the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. H. It is the repetition of consonant sounds, especially at the end of a word. For example, stroke of luck. Here are the correct answers. A figure of a speech is when we use words in a special way to make our language more interesting or to create a certain effect. Figures of a speech make language more colorful and engaging. It is like adding a special touch to what we say or write to make it more creative and fun, thus creating an impact. We can find figures of a speech not just in stories and poems, but also in greeting cards, advertisements, newspaper, headlines, and even in the way people talk about sports, music, and other topics they are passionate about. Lit Charts has provided a clear way on defining the commonest figures of a speech. A metaphor is a figure of a speech that makes a comparison between two unrelated things by stating that one thing is another thing, even though this is not literally true. For example, if someone says it's raining cats and dogs, this obviously does not literally mean what it says. It is a metaphor that makes a comparison between the weight of cats and dogs and heavy rain. Metaphors are tropes because their effect relies not on the mechanics of the sentence, but rather on the association created by the use of the phrase cats and dogs in a non-literal manner. A simile, like a metaphor, makes a comparison between two unrelated things. However, instead of stating that one thing is another thing, as in metaphor, a simile states that one thing is like another thing. To stick with cats and dogs, an example of a simile would be to say, they fought like cats and dogs. A hyperbole is an intentional exaggeration of the truth, used to emphasize the importance of something or to create a comic effect. An example of a hyperbole is to say that a backpack weighs a ton. No backpack literally weighs a ton, but to say my backpack weighs 10 pounds does not effectively communicate how burdensome a heavy backpack feels. Once again, this is a trope because its effect comes from understanding that the words mean something different from what they literally say. In alliteration, the same sound repeats in a group of words, such as the B sound in Bob brought the bags of bricks to the basement. Alliteration uses repetition to create a musical effect that helps phrases to stand out from the language around them. Assonance is a scheme in which vowel sounds repeat in nearby words, such as the double E sound in the proverb, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like alliteration, assonance uses repeated sounds to create a musical effect in which words echo one another. It's a scheme because this effect is achieved through repetition of words with certain sounds, not by playing with the meaning of words. Consonance is a figure of speech in which the same consonant sound repeats within a group of words. An example of consonance is traffic figures on July 4th to be tough. Consonance occurs when sounds, not letters, repeat. In the example above, the F sound is what matters, not the different letters, such as PH, used to produce that sound. Consonants does not require the words with the same consonant sounds be directly next to each other. Consonance occurs so long as identical consonant sounds are relatively close together. The repeated consonant sounds can occur anywhere within the words, at the beginning, middle, or end, and in stressed or unstressed syllables. However, saying that the rain feels indifferent poetically emphasizes the cruel timing of the rain. Personification can help writers to create more vivid descriptions to make readers see the world in new ways and to more powerfully capture the human experience of the world, since people really do often interpret the non human entities of the world as having human traits. Onomatopoeia is a figure of speech in which words evoke the actual sound of the thing they refer to or describe. The boom of a firework exploding, the tick-tock of a clock, and the ding-dong of a doorbell are all examples of onomatopoeia. Note that these are just the most commonly used figures of speech in literature, and there are a lot more. These figures of speech help the writers to provide a deeper meaning into their poetry and create a beauty in the writing process. Read a short poem, The Familiar Sounds in Our Home by Rocky James G. Saraswa. Before I sleep at night, my mama would shh, shh. While asleep, they hear me zzz, zzz, zzz. When I wake up, the white rooster will crow, tick-tilaok, tick-tilaok, tick-tilaok. Our cows would maa, maa, maa. Our ducks would quack, quack, quack. The minute Mayas will tweet, 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 tweet. Our pet brownie will bark, arf, arf, arf. These are the sounds that I listen to every morning. For the breakfast, my mama would heat up a kettle for their coffee. The whistling sound signals that the water is boiling hot as the sun. The crunchy cereals I bite, munch, the excited egg in the pan sizzles, and a burp, burp, burp means the time full. In silence, the sad shiny silver clock sounds tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Mama's vivacious vacuum cleaner thuds. The fabulous flower garden has buzzes from the bees. The birds chirp in the distant trees. When the sun sets, my energy resets. It's time to rest like a king. When the moon appears lively and sweet, I am all ears for the stories my mama will tell for me to feel very well. And before I sleep at night, my mama would shh, shh, shh. While asleep, they hear me zzz, zzz, zzz. As described in the poem, what sounds does the poet hear every morning? The poet hears the crowing of the rooster, the mooing of cows, the quacking of ducks, the tweeting of Mayas, and the barking of their pet dog. How does the poet describe the sounds of the rooster and the farm animals in the poem? The rooster goes tick-tilaok, the cows goes ma, and the ducks go quack, quack, quack. What does the whistling sound in the poem signify? The whistling sound means the water in the kettle is already boiling. Describe the breakfast scene mentioned in the poem. What sounds are associated with breakfast? During breakfast, the poet hears the crunching of cereal, the sizzling of eggs in the pan, and the burping sound after eating. What does the poet mean by the sad shiny silver clock sounds tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock? It shows the quiet moment and the passing of time as the ticking clock echoes in silence. How is the vacuum cleaner described in the poem? What sound does it make? The vacuum cleaner is described as vivacious and makes a loud whoo sound. What sounds can be heard in the fabulous flower garden according to the poem? The buzzing of bees and the chirping of birds in the distant trees can be heard in the garden. What natural sounds are mentioned in the last stanza of the poem? The poem mentions the silence of the night and the natural sound of birds chirping. How does the poet describe the transition from day to night in the poem? The poet describes the sun setting, energy resetting, and it being time to rest and sleep. What feelings or emotions does the poet experience when listening to the stories told by Mama at night? The poet feels comforted, happy, and relaxed when listening to Mama's stories at night. Let's have a lesson activity. Let's read this poem. A tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray. A tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair. Upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. What is the central theme of the poem Trees by Joyce Kilmer? The central theme is the beauty, spirituality, and divine creation of nature, especially trees, as a work only God can make. How does the poet describe trees in the poem? What words or phrases does he use? The poet describes the trees as lovely with a hungry mouth, leafy arms, nest of robins, and as someone who looks at God all day. Why do you think the poet chose to write about trees? What message is he trying to convey? The poet chose trees to show the wonder of nature and to emphasize that no human creation can match the beauty and perfection of God's creations. How do trees benefit the environment and living beings? Trees provide shelter for animals, produce oxygen, absorb carbon dioxide, give shade, and help prevent soil erosion. In what ways can we contribute to conserving trees and protecting the environment based on what you've learned from the poem? We can plant trees, avoid cutting them down, support reforestation, and appreciate the beauty and role of nature in our lives. Identify examples of personification in the poem Trees. How does personification help convey the poet's message? A tree whose hungry mouth is pressed looks at God all day, lifts her leafy arms to pray. This gives the tree human-like qualities, making it feel sacred and alive. What is the difference between a simile and a metaphor? Can you find examples of both in the poem? A simile uses like or as, while a metaphor directly compares. Example of a simile, a poem lovely as a tree. The poem compares a poem to a tree using as. How does the poet use imagery to describe trees? What pictures do you see in your mind when you read the poem? The poet uses visual and sensory imagery, like nest of robins, leafy arms, and snow has lain. This create pictures of a living, changing tree in different seasons. Find instances of alliteration or consonants in the poem. How do these techniques enhance the poem's rhythm and meaning? Example, a nest of robins in her hair. The repetition of the H sound adds softness. Alliteration gives the poem a musical following rhythm that reflects the beauty of trees. Discuss the use of symbolism in the poem. What do trees symbolize in the context of nature and environmental conservation? Trees symbolize life, faith, beauty, and the divine power of nature. They remind us that nature is sacred and must be respected and protected. For learners' takeaways, fill out what I have learned journal. the topic that I already know, the topic that I just learned, the topic that I still want to learn more. For your formative assessment, write true if the statement gives a correct idea and false if otherwise. Number 1. Figures of speech are important for the beauty of literature. 2. The tongue twister, she sells seashells by the seashore is an example of alliteration. How can a clam cram in a clean cream can is an example of hyperbole. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers is an example of consonants. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair is an example of personification. The tongue twister, Betty Butter, both some butter, is an example of simile. Alliteration is the repetition of initial consonant sounds in neighboring words or syllables. Hyperbole involves extreme exaggeration for emphasis or effect. Simile directly refers to one thing by mentioning another to suggest they are alike. Personification attributes human characteristics to non-human things or abstract concepts. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds in neighboring words or syllables. Consonance is the repetition of consonant sounds, especially at the end of a word. Onomatopoeia involves the use of words that imitate the sounds they represent. Metaphor compares two different things using the words like or as. The tongue twister, Betty Butter, both some butter exemplifies onomatopoeia. Here are the correct answers.